you were doing real estate in 2005, 6, and 7, you probably made a bundle if you got out and didn't keep writing it.
Literally sitting at home being like, I just sold a house today.
Yeah.
I just sold this one. We just bought this. These guys barely got their high school diplomas and they're making $500,000 a year. Like,
it's even if someone gives you the roadmap, it's still, you have to do the work yourself, and it just takes time. No one can go to the gym for you and lift weights for you. No one go run that mile for you. That's the same thing with business. You just have to jump in there. Welcome to Inside the Hive with Kyle and Brandon. Join us as we explore business, real estate, current events, and personal growth. We dive into the latest trends, offer valuable insight, and share stories. Thanks for tuning in. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
I mean, it's like that period of time, I basically just blend it with this.
Yeah.
Because like I was doing the same thing. I was like, we got that Chase Bank contract at EcoSun, and then we just said like, those energy programs are leaving, and so we're just going to go all in on this retail stuff. And that's when SCG kind of got its legs.
Hey, it might be good for me to ask you that portion instead of like, God, how we get started. It's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I can tell you why mine. I mean, I had like no choice. It was like a necessity.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, hey, you're done with school, buddy. You better fucking figure your shit out.
I know the motivation of like why we did it was like just in the recession, there's no jobs.
Yeah.
So
we came out at the worst time.
The worst time. I mean, 2008? I should have graduated 2007, but I think it was like.
I should have graduated in 06. I had one class for fucking 2 years. It was
like that. It was like we graduated, no jobs. The whole country's economy is in the toilet. So what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
So we started. I remember going to Paxton's mom's house, and she would bake like brownies and stuff too. I remember that. That was like nice. But we sat at the kitchen table and was coming up with ideas. So it wasn't even that we were good at like a certain thing. Like sometimes that's usually how people start businesses, you know, they're like good at cooking. So they start a restaurant, or they're good at anything, I don't know, carpentry, something.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like it was everyone bring ideas to the table next week. And then it'd be like a Wednesday night. We'd all be meeting literally at the kitchen table.
Yeah. We had like gave each other homework. So it was like, we met, me, you, Paxton, and Nolan. I didn't really know who Nolan was. It was your guys' friend.
No, it was Paxton's work buddy.
Was Paxton's work buddy?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that, but it was, we'd go there, different ideas. Oh, should we start a healthy vegetarian restaurant?
Yeah.
Should we start this? And you were working with your buddy doing those attic fans. Is that what it was?
We were doing energy, a radiant barrier. So that was our claim to fame was we were knocking on doors doing radiant barrier. And so and I wanted out of that. Like, this is a horrible business.
I mean, in Scottsdale in Arizona, when it's 115 degrees in the summer and you're crawling around in an attic, that's not a fun job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a fun job. But we decided, wow, Brand's making all this money. Maybe we'll just copy like kind of what Brand's business is, doing it, and try to launch it into something bigger.
Yeah.
And then I remember we're sitting around, and then the name EcoSun, I somehow came up with that.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
We wanted to get into solar at the time. And that was like a trend. There was a lot of rebates for it. And it was something I couldn't break into because you needed like a little more capital.
Yeah.
You really had to like market. And what was our other guys, Paxton's job was like marketing. So he was like, oh, I could throw websites up and I can throw these AdWords. And this was like kind of the beginning stages of like Google AdWords and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he made the phone ring, right? Like when we kind of relaunched the EcoSun thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's a lot of details in between all that, but that was ultimately what it was. Yeah, we were showing. I was like had this idea to be like a solar distributor. I had this idea. We had blenders.
I remember a solar distributor.
Restaurant, and he even made like 1-page brochures. Like, here's what the restaurant logo will look like. We're like, man, I opened this how to open a restaurant for dummies, and it said like 90% of these failed from day one. And we're like, okay, let's not do this one. I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
And I've been fired from my other, sandwich making job.
I think I was fired from almost every job I had. I was like,
me too.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing to be announcing to the world, but I think I had like one or two that stuck. The rest of them, man, it didn't work. I tried to work in a restaurant one time. I worked at, I think you knew, it was college, Rainforest Cafe. Oh my God, man. That was the worst like 3 weeks of career I've ever had. I went there and I was just completely full of it when they were going to hire because somebody I knew worked there and they said they got really good tips and this and that. So I went there and they're like, you have restaurant, waiter experience, server experience. It's like, oh yeah, serving all the time. I'm serving here, serving there, serving everywhere. And I go there and go through the training and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So like the first I shadow this one waitress and finally it was my turn. And I'm carrying out this tray and there's like drinks on it. And I think basic 101 is like you take something off the side of the tray, the other tray, like you have to counterbalance the weight. So I just take like a beer off, the thing just goes like this and I spill beer all over this guy. First, like my first table, like out of like some movie, man, my first table just spills beer all over this dude. And he looks at me and I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I was like, I gotta go. I gotta leave. I can't. So I stuck it out. But that job was rough because they dress you in this little outfit. So it's a very themed restaurant. Have you ever been to Rainforest Cafe?
Oh, yeah.
So I had it down, man. I was like, I'll be your safari guide for the evening. You got Gloria the Griller here is going to go off every 20 minutes. You got it was a whole thing. It's just embarrassing yourself. I was 20 years old.
Did you ever get to meet the founder of that?
No, but I know it owns by
crazy article about that guy.
Oh, really?
That the way he started that, he turned his house into Rainforest Cafe to attract investors. Spent like,
oh, no
don't
kidding.
quote me on this, but like, let's call it like $3 million. Like he had maybe some success doing something else. Say all his money, like second mortgage of the house, turned it into Rainforest Cafe with parrots driving around.
No kidding.
And like all like the waterfalls and stuff. And people were like, this is kind of interesting. And he got like opened his first restaurant that way. And it was like a $15 million restaurant. Like took fucking 2 years longer than it was supposed to take. And he had real parrots. And
oh my gosh.
Like, you can't have real birds in here, man. He's like, we would take away like the theme.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was like just kind of like just a visionary. Like
we'll call that a visionary. That was, I mean, it's obvious. I think.
Didn't I send that to you?
I don't think you sent it to me, but everybody that sees anything about Rainforest Cafe sends it to me, just because they know the story and they just want to give like a little.
I was a fan. As a younger kid.
I was a fan too as a kid, and I didn't think it was going to be that bad. And then you go there. They had the mist. They had the thing. I forgot the names of all the animals too, but it was like the gorilla had a name, and the lions, and the whole thing, man. And I had a whole speech I had to give, and it wasn't like a bad working environment. I don't want to give I think it's owned by Landry's now that owns Joe's Crab Shack and Red Lobster. There's
still a few of them around. Yeah.
I think there's still a few, but I thought Disney had something to do with it at one point, or there was one at like Disney Walk. I forgot, but it's been so many years.
Definitely. It was a themed
thing, and it was like in, I think I want to say like downtown Disney at one point. And it was, but yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience. But
yeah,
I have a lot more respect for servers after going through that. I remember on Wednesdays there was a kids eat free, but it wasn't like one kid with one adult. It was like kids. So it'd be one adult. And like 9 of these little kids would show up. And I'm just like hustling the little dino chicken fingers and stuff all over the place. And next thing you know, the bill is like $19. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to go broke. Like I can't survive. But it was better because I'm at a roommate at a time, Chief, Chief, my buddy Chief. And he'd come home and he was slinging Christmas trees at the Christmas tree lot. So he would come home, we'd tell stories. And he would say that he'd had to go grab a tree. He'd wrap the tree. He'd put all the stuff together. He'd ring them up. He'd take it. He'd put it on the car. He'd tie it on the car. He'd come back. Owner would give him $1. Go do it one more time. He'd work all day, 20 trees, get $20. And I was working here and we were like, what the hell? It was an interesting time. He ended up quitting that job and getting a job at Rainforest. I said it was awesome, but I quit. And he kept doing it for a couple months.
Jeez.
But yeah. But then back to what we were saying, that is how we decided none of that. Yeah. Let's go start our own.
We digress here. So, yeah, how did we get to where we are? I mean, it's been an entrepreneurial journey. We get this question a lot where, why'd you start a business? Like, what made you go into that? Oh, you must be so smart or this. And I have to question myself sometimes, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, well, how did I get here?
I agree with that. I don't. Starting it was out of necessity, I feel like, because we just needed to do something. Then there wasn't like a lot of jobs available at the time. The jobs that we just mentioned, the jobs we had, probably not the best ones. And that's it. And you kind of just, we thought we could make some money. We saw an opportunity with energy efficiency in Arizona. That was really how it was. I think Obama at the time had some environmental rebates and impacts, things like that. That if in Arizona you did energy efficiency for your house and the bill was say $5,000, then you got a rebate for like $3,000 or something crazy like that. So it became easy to sell. And if something was easy to sell, then we could, kind of replicate without knowing much what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's how it started.
Yeah, there was definitely a market there. Yeah, I remember. Coming out of college, kind of in the Great Recession here. We got these awesome degrees on paper, and I had an internship even with what I probably should have been doing. Like my engineering world and my engineering degree, and I had to take a job for $10 an hour counting nuts and bolts in the back of this warehouse for a while. I'm like, wow, man, this took a turn.
One. Yeah.
But that gave me the opportunity to kind of like go out there and try to, had a buddy at the time was like, let's go knock on doors and sell like attic insulation. My dad did it and it was pretty cool and it's easy.
Yeah.
And that was our summer little like gig. And then we really blew that up though.
Yeah.
Meeting all together and kind of come up with these business ideas. I remember seeing guys previous to that, the recession, where they were doing real estate stuff like homes. They were doing residential homes. They were kind of this entrepreneur. I think they could just print money at that time.
Yeah.
They were just, they would sight unseen, go make $100,000 selling a house somewhere. I'm like, how is this even possible? And I'm in college, just grinding, broke. And, and I'm like, how are these guys? These guys didn't even graduate high school, some of them.
Yeah.
And they were making $500,000
what was
a year.
That,
like,
2006,
something's not right.
2007 or something like that?
Like that 05, 04, 06, 07, all the way up into that when it literally things just collapsed.
Exactly. If you were doing real estate in 2005, 6, and 7, you probably made a bundle if you got out and didn't keep writing it, because that 2008 hits, 2009, and it fell off a cliff.
It was like, I just remember seeing housewives, like literally sitting at home being like, I just sold a house today.
Yeah.
I just sold this one. We just bought this. And it's like, wow. So to me, it was like something was off too. I'm like, why am I in college? These guys barely got their high school diplomas and they're making $500,000 a year. Like something's off here. Well, it definitely took a turn for the worse there.
Yeah.
But that's right when we came out of school and there was nothing available. Everything dried up. All infrastructure jobs for me, any business jobs out there, everyone was laying people off. It was bad times.
It was.
So I think it was kind of like out of seeing like one of my friends doing that, like going, hey, I think there might be something here. Then having bigger visions with you and a couple of our other friends, literally meeting at our friend's mom's kitchen table, being like, let's start a business because there's nothing else to do. Either that or I got to keep counting bolts at this guy's warehouse.
Yeah.
Or why don't we start a business, like try and figure this out ourselves here?
And that's really what it was. We met at Paxton's mom's house every Wednesday, I want to say. It was like every Wednesday we met at Paxton's mom's house and went over business ideas. And eventually we came up with want to do solar or the energy efficiency, basically replicate what you were kind of doing, installing solar fans and things in radiant barrier in people's attics. And that's how we were going to grow with it. And that was basically it. We came up with the name EcoSun. We drafted.
I give you credit for that. Kyle came up with a great name.
Yes, I'm a pretty good namer.
Got the West Hive. SCG maybe was more collaborative.
Yeah.
It was a silver.
Background there. A little background on that. But yes, naming is, I don't have a lot of the skill sets in this development and construction management, but I can name the shit out of things. So so we started doing that. And I remember that at the time, Nolan, who I didn't know very well, was just like, this isn't for me, and just wanted out immediately. Yeah. I think we drafted up like a partnership agreement and signed it. Like a week later, he's like, you guys keep doing this. Yeah. So it was me, you, and Paxton. And then I actually, like you said, there was no jobs. I get a job offer from my dad. It was almost like my stepmom. They never officially got married, but they were dating for like 10 years. She had a company in California, in Southern California, environmental, doing environmental study, phase 1, phase 2, so people know what that is. And she's like, you come out here and you can work kind of like a paid intern type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, I want to take this. So I moved to Irvine. I moved to Newport Beach in Irvine and worked there for about a year. But working in that environment, I learned a ton. I was, I did some underwriting for these big projects. I learned how to underwrite for developments. I learned how environmental studies and impact reports worked and things like that. But it was difficult working with someone so close to family. And I was so broke because I only got paid, I think it was 13, $14 or something. It was not a lot of money at the time of an hour. And I remember calling you guys back and be like, hey, I'm coming back to Arizona, man. That didn't work out. Like I came back and I got you guys had made some progress. He made some significant progress. And Pax was still working at his full-time job at Chapman Auto. You were all in. I wasn't all in yet, but Paxton wasn't all in either. But I came back, I was like, hey, I'm ready to be all in. I got no job, I have nothing. And there was this certification, I remember, from BPI, the Building Performance Institute. And we went through this program and got certified to be an energy auditor. And that was, they made it seem like once you're an energy auditor, I mean, a Lamborghini is coming next month because it's like your world is your oyster. You are going to just crush it in life. I'm like, you're getting $300 an audit. You're doing 19 audits a day. It's like, what? So it was just, I don't even know what they were trying to pitch us, but I got this degree, I got this certification, and come back and like, hey man, I know you're outsourcing this auditing, but I can do that now, and we'll get the ball rolling. And that was kind of it. And you go to people's houses. There was a program with the utility companies in Arizona where there was like a rebate or something where people would get, and you could go do these energy audits and they would pay the auditor. And I did that that was my contribution to the company, was doing these energy audits in 115 degrees, crawling through these attics. And that job sucked. So checking the HVAC, checking the leakage of the windows, going through and doing this full energy audit of these homes. And that was it. And we did that for a while. And I think the rebates were drying up or something. I mean, you might want to touch more on that. And we decided, let's kind of expand to California at the time and get into not energy efficiency, regular construction, right? It was something like that.
I think we actually, we did expand the energy business, energy efficient business to California. It just never stuck. We were attracted to all these rebates. So these were like a lot of big cities, states had these rebate programs. And we came out here with setting, with that path, but it just never stuck. And Arizona was starting to dwindle down a little bit. It was super competitive. Then they started drying up a little bit, and they got, they were just kind of like cutting people, and then the audits were drying up, and maybe the economy was getting better. This is 2010, 11, 12 at this point.
Yeah, that's about right.
And so things were starting to kind of come back. People were getting jobs, and the rebates had a shelf life. And so I think, when we came out here, we ended up really going all in on like retail construction. So that's when we really started up that side of the company. Got lucky with like Chase Bank, and did a big rollout for them out west, and that, I think that's where our career really started, 2012. In the retail world, like we were doing all this residential stuff, got this opportunity, went all in on this. Not that we really knew what we were doing, but we could manage a project. I guess we could hire a couple contractors to put some flooring in the banks. And, we were young, so we didn't mind working at night and traveling and whatever that took. Yeah. And then I ever since then, we just went after the retail world. So.
Yeah. I remember that as coming to California, and they had tons of these rebates available. But the difference between Arizona and California is, I think Arizona and I believe it's Minnesota have the two biggest differentials in climate. It's like Minnesota goes so negative in the winters, at like negative 20, 30 degrees. Then it goes, 90 degrees with the humidity in the summer. There's a big differential. Well, Arizona is number 2, where it gets freezing cold in the winter and then 120 degrees in the summer. So that's why energy efficiency, these houses, when you put in heating and cooling, you needed this. Well, California may have all the rebates in the world, but you come here and you got an ocean breeze or something like that, and the demand wasn't there. And that's basic economics. Was supply and demand. And that was something we overlooked. There was a demand more inland in California, but it wasn't like Arizona. It wasn't like this trend where everybody wanted solar energy efficiency, because your utility bills are hundreds and hundreds of dollars in the summer cranking AC all day. So that was the difference. And I think that was something we overlooked a little bit. Big time, yeah. And that was, now, to be said, we did have a friend that we knew who started a solar company and did extremely well in California. And he created a solar sales army. it was just hundreds of people knocking on doors selling, and that's what he was good at. And I mean, hats off to him. He crushed it, and I think he's still crushed it. I haven't seen it. I think his name's Dave Murray. If he's watching this, shout out to Dave. I mean, that guy's a beast when it comes to business in general, just entrepreneur, cool dude. And I think the last thing I heard, he lives in Texas now, probably because the rebates, probably because it's hot as I know Texas always has energy and stuff like that.
Very forward on
very
that.
forward on that. But to your point, we transitioned, and that's just a big thing about, I think, being an entrepreneur, owning your own business is, can you pivot? Can you understand the market? Can you understand supply, demand, basic stuff, pricing, what's going to happen? Can you make those adjustments? Because no matter what plan you have, Mike Tyson's got that line. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face or something. And that's what business is. You have a plan, day one, it changes. And that's what we had. We had multiple times we had to pivot. And coming to California, we had a different plan. And we ended up saying, whoa, this isn't going to work. We better get some other work somehow. We started doing, I think you said, the Chase Bank type of stuff. Got a contract there, a friend of ours, right? And it was to do that, and started doing, how many did we knock out of those? Like 300 of those suckers?
Yeah, we did a whole bunch of those, few hundred of them. And that was our start in kind of the commercial retail construction world. But yeah, we definitely had to pivot. The energy efficiency programs were starting to dwindle a little bit. The demand wasn't there. The marketing was so expensive. We had the laborers and the trucks and multiple crews going out a day. And it was just something that, I mean, I don't think we were capable of managing that much going on really at such a young age, and 2 offices. And here I am like 27 years old or something. Yeah.
I was driving that white van around too, which was just creepy. And that was, I remember that big old white van because we were doing the work. Now, just so people can follow, when we started these companies, we were actually like doing the work a lot of times. Yeah. So we skipped over that. Yeah, we skipped over that part a little bit, but I remember one time, I think it was right down here in Irvine, and we need to sell more deals. We need to sell more projects. So I would knock on the door, and I sold this guy energy efficiency. We're going to do your attic, your insulation. We'll do all this stuff. I go in his living room. By the way, going into someone's living room, knocking on the door and selling them something for $5,000 to $7,000 just at the kitchen table is a difficult thing to do. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur or own your own business, I suggest doing something like that, because that's got to be one of the most difficult sales. Face to face, knock on the door, complete stranger. It's difficult, and it's a lot of pressure. But it's we were doing that. We had to do what you had to do. You got to eat. So I remember selling this guy on this company. It's amazing. Talking about it like I'm just like the sales guy, right? And there's this crew coming and this and that. Yeah. And also he's like, okay, we sign up Saturday. We're going to be out there, going to blow the insulation, going to do all stuff. And all of a sudden Saturday, knock on the door and I got a different outfit on. I changed my polo to like, I'm ready to go, dude. Like we're going to install this stuff. And it was just me. And I think our Jeremiah was with me installing. And we go and just do this whole house. And this guy's like, so it's just you? And it's me. And I remember that was, it was some long days, but it was, that's how it was. And then couldn't do that forever. It just wasn't sustainable. Got into commercial, and we tried to just get more and more commercial projects. And once we started doing the Chase Banks, I think it gave us some credibility. People were like, well, what have you done before? Oh, hundreds of Chase Banks, and then we started to be able to go after and do other types of commercial construction. And then my favorite part, we no longer had to be the ones doing the work.
Yeah.
The larger the projects, getting into commercial grade, you would hire real contractors, real people like that. We got away from even having our own staff in there. We had superintendents, but that was it.
That's something with the entrepreneurial journey is just, I think you underestimate sometimes, is you've got to kind of wear a lot of hats, whether that's the sales guy, the marketing guy. When I turned 18, I remember going out and just wanting to get a job in like every industry. And I got on the cold calling front, and we got onto the door knocking thing and the in-home sales, and all these experiences have kind of led. I still to this day make cold calls.
Yeah.
And so it's like having that background and just having the ability to wear that many hats, a little bit of accounting, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales, a little bit of management, a little bit of I'm basically not good at any one thing, but I kind of know a little bit about a whole bunch of stuff. And I don't know, that's something to take away from that journey though, for sure.
I agree. The wearing the hat thing and not super good at one particular thing. And some entrepreneurs are, I'm guessing, but
I'm sure.
We weren't. We were good at putting people in place, seeing the bigger picture, and just kind of keep moving forward and knowing a little bit about everything. So that helped, and it kind of just grew from there. A lot of mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, we'll get into that. I'd love to have something where we have like a just this edition or something of the biggest mistakes and go over that, because
absolutely, yeah.
You know, I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this too, that people that have any sort of social media or any podcasts or anything like that, they talk about their wins a lot. And I never hear some of these people talk about when they just like stepped in it and they made these huge mistakes. They'll tell me offline. I mean, we have a friend who has like, he's a big following with a podcast and Instagram, social media, and everything's like, just, it's everything's awesome all the time, making money. Then I talked to him offline and he just lost his ass on this thing. He just had a mistake happen in construction here. And no one talks about these things, but mistakes are part of just being a business owner, being an entrepreneur. You're going to make mistakes, and it's what do you learn from them? And to this day, when we do projects, we've done, I mean, hundreds of construction management projects now. And we do projects, we do lessons learned afterwards and be like, what can we improve on? What mistakes do we make? And we've had some doozies. Yeah. So that's part of the journey too.
Yeah. We'll make a list of these because I think it'll be helpful for us to even review some of those mistakes that we've made. As long as we don't continue to repeat the same mistakes, we learn from them.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the name of the game. But yeah,
we're trying to repeat them, but it's
going on the entrepreneurial journey. I remember someone telling me that, oh, you started your own business. Yeah, get ready to really make a lot of mistakes. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
No, man, we'll be good.
Yeah.
I think I got this.
Yeah. I think it's
he was right.
when people come to us and they're like, hey, I'm looking to start a business, start something like that. And you can tell that, just like anything, right? I always equate it to fitness or something like that. I think like working out is, people kind of want that secret, how do I get in shape, with just one, like someone's going to tell them the magic solution. And just instantly they're going to be like, oh, by the way, don't do this. They're like, I got it. And then they go, Mr. Olympia. It doesn't really work that way. Even if someone, I saw an interview with Ronaldo one time, one of the best soccer players in the world. And they were like, what's the secret of this and that? He's like, I can write down, or I'm paraphrasing. He's like, I'll write down exactly what it takes to be Ronaldo, and I'll give it to you. You won't do it. And he's like, it's just it's just too hard. No one's going to do it. And I think that's a lot of just things in business or getting in shape or something like that. It's, even if someone gives you the roadmap, it's still, you have to do the work yourself, and it just takes time, and you have to learn along the way yourself. No matter what, no one can do it for you. No one can go to the gym for you and lift weights for you. No one can go run that mile for you. That's the same thing with business. You just have to jump in there, and over time you start to learn and know what works and things like that. So when people come to us and they like, oh, I'm starting a new business, give me some advice, I actually now can give them a bunch of mistakes of what not to do. Yeah. I have a lot of trouble telling people what to do because I don't know their particular business. I don't really know the path that they should take, but I can tell you what not to do. I'd be like, don't do this. Don't make sure you have this in writing. Don't do this. I can do that all day long and give them 20 and be like, nah, don't do that one either. And that's, hopefully I can give some of my like friends, family, people that do that's like a little bit of advice of, man, I did that one time and it was really bad. And that's kind of, I think, what I could bring to the table for anybody trying to start a new business. It's not necessarily the perfect roadmap, but if I talk to them, I could tell them I've experienced not doing that one.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot more resources for people these days. A lot of people sharing their journey and talking about those mistakes that they've made, and hopefully people listen to that.
They do. And all the books that are available now. I've read so many books about business or entrepreneurship or starting this or just even about like goal setting and you got the Rich Dad Poor Dads and the 4-hour work weeks and this, but there's so much. I just feel that like 20 years ago, there wasn't as many things. I know The Art of the Deal, like Trump's book and some others, but I just didn't feel like there was that many. But now there's resources everywhere.
Yeah. They're a lot more than we had in 2008.
Yeah.
Kind of coming out doing this. Things have really progressed since then. So.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I want to touch on that a little. Touch on this a little bit, where when we did have to make a pivot, we were closing down the energy efficiency thing. We didn't see the light. We weren't really getting excited about that. Losing some stuff. So we started to pivot into this commercial sector. We had kind of both going on. Started saying, hey, you know what? Let's go all in on this. So you and I, we had took a big step back here. We actually lost a partner at that time because this wasn't his vision moving forward. He just wanted to market and all this. And so we needed some of that. But what did we do? I mean, we did a big pivot there.
Yeah.
And this was an old school way of bringing in business too.
Old school. But like you said, lost a partner. Me and you now.
Lost a partner as in he just stepped away.
Stepped away. He's still alive. But we're still friends with him, by the way. Cool guy. But we lost a partner, just you and I. We're like, we're going to go into commercial construction. And we got some advice from, my dad was actually a general contractor, his whole life. And I asked him, like, how did you get work? He's like, oh, you got to go to these events and go to this. And he was old school. He's in his 70s now.
His heyday was in the 80s and the 90s.
He's telling us, guys, you got to get a subscription to Dodge Report. You got to get the pink slips are coming. This stuff doesn't even exist anymore. He's like, then you got to fax it over here. And you got to fax it, huh? It was, but to be honest, I'm teasing a little bit, but the old school way of shaking hands and meeting architects and doing things like that actually was really good advice. So that's what you and I started to do.
Yeah.
And we started going to networking events and had business cards. We were just going around. I remember it was some ones in Orange County here, like the Elite OC, and we joined ULI, and we joined some BOMA, and we joined ICS, all these other networking groups, and kept going to these events. And we kept trying to meet architecture firms and engineering firms. And we started going with other general contractors, said, hey, if we can land a deal or get like a client, could you like help us do the work? Because we weren't set up yet. So we were almost like a paper contractor where we could go sell, we could lock someone down, but we had to have another like subprime contractor do the work. And I think that's when we started, just kept networking, kept hustling, and we started getting some projects. And then I remember we did some good ones, but you were cold calling from Blue Book or Dodge Report or something, and got it was like an Eisenhower, like a big medical thing, quite a few million. It was like finally a project worth a couple $1 million. And that was something that we, out in Palm Desert area or something like that.
And that was something that we had to kind of raise the flag. Once we picked that niche of like, we're going all in on something here.
Yeah.
Let's just press on this. We've got this resume now. We got a couple of these Chase Bank accounts. We did a couple little projects here or there. We built a little restaurant. So we're like, but this is fun. Like there's money involved in this. It's more, more professional. We're dealing more with like business to business now, not like people's homes, which is a difficult business, right? They have, it's like their biggest investment they'll make in their entire life. They're very nitpicky on this. This was a place for these guys to make money. But once we kind of picked that niche, it was raise that flag, right? We went to all those networking events, picked up the phone. And that's something I encourage people. I mean, it's like if you once you pick that niche, go all in and become that expert, or at least pretend you're that expert until you are that expert.
Yeah.
And do whatever you can, whether that's classes, whether that's just going and networking with like-minded people.
Yeah.
Learn that. Like, how are these guys getting business? Sit down with the architect. Kind of make a fool of yourself. Ask stupid questions that maybe they don't think is stupid, but you think these are dumb questions to be asking. But you just got to put yourself out there.
I completely agree with that, and it's. I think when starting a business, some people think that there's so much to do. You have to start this whole process and create this whole thing first. I'm like, you can have an idea, create yourself a business card, whatever service you're going to sell, go out and start talking to people. Do you want to buy this? Buy my service, buy what I can do, and just start telling people and see if you can, if someone says yes and you can help them and put a price together.
Is there a demand for what you are trying to sell?
Yes. Is there a demand? And that's basically it. That's all we did was go out and say we can build out retail, restaurants, construction projects. Actually, we got a few AT&T stores to build out, and we did a couple other restaurants, and then eventually we started working with the Realmex Group, and they own every El Torito, Chevy's, Acapulco, a bunch of Mexican restaurants all across the country. They're a conglomerate. They're founded are based here in Southern California. And once we got in with them, it was they're remodeling all their stores. Their restaurants were 40 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember that was like pretty pivotal that, wow, it might not be one project. This could be a ton of projects.
Yeah. Yeah. And we did. We went on a good run there too, pre-recession or pre-pandemic.
Yep.
Which was good. Yeah. We did a couple really cool projects, notable ones. And that was good. But
a notable one, there was one we made a little bit of money on, or two different scenarios. So the one, when they had the one, there was a project in Monterey. And I remember you went up there and it was just one of those basic ones to just remodel the floor.
Yeah.
And the floor fell out in the ocean.
Yeah. It was literally a paint job, redo the flooring. Let's kind of spruce the place up a little bit, spend a couple $100,000. Day one of demolition, the whole thing is collapsing into the bay. Come to find out, they had actually just painted these rotted beams and things and then the floor. And so, I mean, we had, a GC on site and I was up there. I basically lived up there for a couple months, I think, trying to get this thing. I come back on the weekends.
Yeah.
We worked around the clock trying to get this thing back open.
Exactly. I was playing accountant and contract lawyer and things like that behind the scene with all these, we had 16 different subcontractors on it, just basically old school GCing it. But when you went up there to look at that floor and the paint thing, they opened it up. And it was so much that was asbestos and a bunch of stuff like that. It was just dry rot.
Gone,
it was like dry rot. This is a famous El Torito in Monterey. It's in Cannery Row, and it overlooks. It's on it's on stilts.
Yeah,
overlooking the ocean,
overlooking the bay. I mean, when the swell is big enough, it will crash through the windows of this restaurant.
So it's right there, and years of that. Underneath the wood underneath was rotting. So
hostile environment.
Yeah, it was. There. And once they peeled that up and saw what it was now exposed, and it got red tagged from the city. The building department came out, red tagged it, and they said, "Oh, you have to redo all this to reopen to the public." And a $20,000 scope of work turned into $1.52 million.
Yeah.
I think it was like $2 million.
No, everything paused. We had to get structural engineers involved. All the beams had to be, anything structurally supporting the restaurant, completely redone.
Yeah.
And we had to phase it out. I think it was a big money-making restaurant for them.
Yeah.
So it behooved them to got to do this right, or you're never going to open this thing. Landlord's not going to let you do it, nor is the city. It's kind of a really small little close-knit community there. Everyone knows everybody, but that was a fascinating time. Talking about a little pivot there too.
It was.
Luckily, we were young enough and nimble enough to do that and to have to go live up there and manage this project.
And exactly. And that was something that, a pivot. It was a pivot where we didn't expect that. And that was just something they had to do. But I remember we used to have very modest margins on projects. And I remember talking with you saying, we're the contractor locked in here and they can't open for business. This thing makes $10 million a year or something. Every month they're losing so much money. Mm-hmm. And we had a call with, and this is a $500 million company, by the way, that owns all these Mexican restaurants across the country. So we sat down with them. They're like, how fast can you get us open? You guys are the only ones on there. And we're like, well, we can. But working every weekend and living up here is expensive.
Yeah, we're going to work around the clock.
We'll work around the clock.
Subcontractors doing the same. They're charging a premium to make this happen.
But we want to be compensated for it. So we finally moved our margin from our modest 7 to 10% or whatever it was, and we jumped that thing to 25, 30%. And they said, okay. And that was it. And we're like, I remember looking, you and I talking like, okay, like we're just going to make, and just like that, we knocked it up.
Go make this happen.
Yep,
like,
make it happen. And in 2 months, we made $500,000.
Yep.
And that's what I feel just changed everything. It's so hard to get a business going where you finally have money in the bank. And that's what that project did, was it finally was like, boom, now with all the money we've saved, we have a big nest egg. And what are we going to do with it? And we started having some plans. We put some plans in place.
Yeah. We invested, we did all sorts of good stuff. But yeah, that's just one of those like right time, right place, taking the opportunity. We almost passed up on the job.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's too far.
Yeah, I remember that.
It looks a little funky, but we were we got in at the right time. And there's a lot of mistakes that came out of that. We actually changed our business model after that to get away from the GCing and anything to do with in-house. We could talk a lot about that later on, which is like what not to do, but
exactly.
Outsource as much as possible. Keep it lean.
Exactly.
Overhead will kill you in any business. But
yeah. And that's something that we did learn from that. That was such an emergency project that we brought all our resources there, but we had all these other projects going on. And that's talk about lessons learned. We weren't paying close enough attention to some of those others, and they were delayed. And it really did.
We did get in trouble on a few others.
It was a little behind schedule on a few others. And we thought, well, this is so much money that it's worth it. But it was unfortunate. We have a really good client that we've been working with for, I think it's like 7 years now, 7 years probably. And they're a nationwide winery client. Love them, just awesome ownership and everything. And they give us a lot of work. And I remember during that time, one of their projects was delayed quite a bit. Yeah, and I always kind of felt like bad about that one.
I try to block some of this stuff out of my memory, but yeah, that's definitely had some issues because of that. But that's a small, being a small company, being a small, having limited staff and limited bandwidth. I mean, these things unfortunately kind of happen. So
yeah, and that happens. But we made it through, did that, and then kept moving forward. And then once we had some money, it was almost like seed money. I mean, we were working together for so long, but that was almost like some seed money was out. Hey, let's do some pay-per-click ads. Let's redo the website. Let's get some marketing. Let's hire some salespeople. I remember we were working almost at one of those executive offices. Then we moved into an office here in Irvine. And then within a couple of years, we outgrew that. It had to get to now 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. And we had a dozen of employees. And it took like one project or a couple like lucky little breaks. I've heard you say before, like, it's a preparation meets opportunity is like luck. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
But then we did that, and we didn't piss away the money that we made. We invested it into other real estate developer deals, and we ended up doubling it. And that's really how things got rolling. And then here we are. We moved away from being a GC, stuck with the service game, because that was just easier, less overhead, no trucks and superintendents, this and that. And we're basically a service consultant. And it started doing better and better. And then I think in 2022, we were ranked number 307 in Inc. magazine's.
Yeah, we grew quickly after that.
Fastest growing companies.
Yeah.
So that was, those are some big milestones. I think we got some top entrepreneur thing in Orange County Business Journal, top contractor, in Orange County Business Journal again, recognition in everything from Deal Report to just a lot of Globe Street, things like that. So it was the company kind of was it kind of was put on the map then, and then we started getting some very notable clients. I mean, then we got a call to our office, by the way, from one of our ads, even though this doesn't sound real. Call to the office. One of our ads says, "Hey, I see you guys do construction management. We're looking to build out some dining facilities here." And we're like, "Yeah, like what company you're with?" They're like, "Oh, we're with SpaceX." I was like, "Bullshit! Like you guys are like, it's like no, really, we're with the Hawthorne campus, and we're trying to take our old buildings and turn them into a bunch of dining facilities for our staff. We have 6,000 employees, and we were like, okay. We started talking to them. And we're like, let's jump on a Zoom. And they're like, we can't Zoom because of security clearance. I'm like, somebody's folding that. I was like, somebody's pulling it. And then we ended up, let's go meet. He says, here, come up and meet me at the campus. And we drove up there, met this guy. And he was the head of their, I think he was like the head of their food and beverage.
Yeah, he was like the chef designing all the menus and feeds 3,000-4,000 people a day out of this potential kitchen that they wanted to make.
Exactly. And he explained what they wanted, like cafeteria style, a Chipotle style thing over here where it's, pick your stuff, some little shops, like grocery shop, grab and go, this and that, and showed us the buildings that hadn't been touched since. I mean, it was
Cold War.
Yeah. I mean, like
literally.
like Northrop Grumman and all these other.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of those old aerospace. I mean, that's how their campus is. If anybody's ever seen it, they just keep buying up buildings. And at the time, they owned 60 buildings, and the buildings are just haven't been touched in 50 years, and they redo them into classrooms or offices, or in this case.
And a lot of these don't have plans on the buildings.
Yeah.
There's no as-built because these were all kind of Army Corps of Engineers stuff. These were all under the radar. The city didn't have to approve this. This was World War II era type of stuff. I mean, they were building rockets there literally back then. So, we found some crazy stuff there. But.
We did. We found some crazy stuff. We had to sign a lot of paperwork we're not allowed to disclose.
Yeah,
did get to see all the rockets though, and the spacesuits, and
super cool,
and mission control, and got full tours of that. And I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
It was definitely. I mean, it's like I feel like a little kid walking around there, seeing these, and you think it's different. But if anybody's seen the movie like Armageddon, where they open the warehouse doors and there's a rocket ship in the middle of the thing, that was real. We opened it up and we're like, oh my gosh. And it was like, oh, they're testing space, and they manufactured all their own materials and parts and things. And I thought it was just fascinating.
Yeah.
Probably not allowed to tell a lot of some of this, but it was good. And we designed the project, did it all, and turned out really well. So that was our experience there. But that lasted a couple of years, working on with a big group like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they sure take a long ass time paying though, I'll tell you. I mean, they try to stretch you out, but it was a fun experience. And we did that, and then started doing more once you have some of these bigger names in your resume. I mean, going from someone's house 12 years ago, doing the residential energy efficient solar, that type of stuff, and you go all the way to now to go to some of these national corporations.
Mm-hmm.
That it helps your resume, and it just builds credibility. And once you have that type of credibility, it kind of just like success breeds success. And then it was easier to get other projects.
Yeah.
And that's where we were. We started working with developers, and we actually decreased some of our staff and started outsourcing to a lot of professional companies. And we liked that model a lot, because we didn't have the overhead, didn't have the W-2s in house, could go focus on capturing these large contracts, and then just growing internally. And that's what we did. We've had some success with it. And then now we are moving into development. And West Hive SCG had a beautiful life. It's still going to be around, doing construction management for anybody that calls the office. But once we started building for all these developers, and we had an opportunity to acquire our first center, we've now pivoted the company and opened West Hive Capital. And that is now the future. Yeah. So we're excited to see where it takes us.
What do you think has been some of the most rewarding aspects of this, of being an entrepreneur?
I would say not answered someone. That was the first thing that came into my mind. However,
not always the case.
However, that's not always the case. And I actually have you hold me accountable. You feel guilty when you have a partner and they're showing up in the morning or something, and you're 7 and my ass rolls in at 9. I'm like, oh, I'm sucking today. You almost feel guilty. And that's something. So you have a partner that keeps you accountable. And I think that, so I thought it was just like, I don't have to answer to anybody, but that was a lie. I thought it was going to be to work less, you work more. I thought it was going to be to have less stress because you don't have a boss, you have more stress. Everything I actually thought is actually the opposite. But the most rewarding is seeing something that you've created come to life.
Mm-hmm. So
having an idea, having everything, and then seeing it brought to life and have success and start generating money and giving people jobs and that type of thing, creating something and seeing it grow, that's the most rewarding. And that's why I think if you have it in you, entrepreneurship is one of the greatest things you could ever do. I mean, we're around a lot of them. We've joined some organizations that are just nothing but entrepreneurs and people that start their own businesses. And it is an awesome thing, but I don't think it's for everybody. But I think it's very rewarding if you can do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's how we got started, how West Hive was born. All right, thanks a lot.